This is Riley here from Mad Jack Racing. Today we're going to be doing the Voyager Pro install from Tack. It's their new latest and greatest computer. This is going to be the computer during the install with that mounting bracket. It's for the fast bars. And then this is the hardware that we're going to be using today. You're going to be using two battery terminal leads that you're going to crimp on to the power cable that connects into the Voyager Pro. You're just going to crimp it on. They come pre-sliced. Do both, want to flip each side, do a little pull test, make sure there's no wiggle in play, otherwise you'll have a bad connection between the battery. Just any standard crimper works. You can also get simple wire cutters at Harbor Freight or any hardware store usually. These are just some special tools that we have at the shop to make the job a lot easier and faster. I pre-cut the tack wire down just because it comes super long from the manufacturer. And then once you're going to do the install around the ignition coil, wrap it around close to the spark plug. And you're going to do about 4 or 5 wraps. And then to secure it onto the line, you're going to want to use a zip tie. You want to make sure your coils are tight and close to each other so that way it gets a good reading to the computer. And then after you do that, you want to get about 8 to 10 inches length of electrical tape and you want to wrap it around. As you wrap around the electrical tape, you want to make sure it's pretty tight, so that way it gets almost a watertight seal. You're going to want to feed the ignition line through the bike, so that way it's not going to get pinched anywhere. Preferably this is on a KTM model, so we go behind the throttle cables, up over along the frame, through where the radiator goes, in between the fork and the frame, up into the neck where the steering stem is, where you're going to put the initial Voyager. You could use some of the existing clips on the bike and also use the ignition coil to follow the wire up and through. Cut any of the zip ties or tape that you can use. And then once, after you have that lead through, we're going to go back to the battery and install the terminal wires. Make sure on most KTM and Husky models that the ground cable gets in the way of the seat and eventually rubs it down. Make sure you move that out of the way. And then we're going to feed the wires under the CDI box. You just pull up that little plastic piece and you're able to grab it there. Same thing, feed it through along the frame. And then once you meet the plug where the ignition wire was, you can just follow that same routing up and through to the stem. And once you have the wire all routed, go ahead and fasten it down with a couple of zip ties so that way it doesn't wiggle out of place or get pinched by anything. Make sure it's not too tight so you don't pull the wires apart. And on most KTMs, they're going to have a rubber flap that goes over the top of the frame from the tank rubbing. You can also use that to secure in the throttle cables with the ignition wire and as well as the power cables that run to the battery. Once those are fastened, then we're going to take off the old computer. It's just 2 Allens. It's going to be a 4mm. Once you pull those out, you're going to undo the existing computer with the cables. Make sure you leave the old computer mounting bracket there, so that way you can still use it for your headlight, blinker, and turn signal switch, as well as for the speedo sensor and the front brake light switch. Make sure when you're cleaning the connectors that you use some form of electrical contact cleaner, just so that way you get a good connection between the connectors. And you can also as well use dielectric grease in the connectors so that you get a good connection throughout the life of the connectors. And make sure on the standard factory hardware that you tape it off or use heat shrink. On this particular model for 2018 KTM 500 EXC, he has the fast flex bars. So today we are going to do a mounting through the bars from a bracket supplied by Fast Company. We are going to drill out holes so that way they can go over the crossbar. Use a tape measure and a Sharpie to get your line, preferably black so you can see it. And then once you have it centered, then go ahead and mark it. And you want to use a 7/32 drill bit to drill through the holes from the hardware that comes from Tech. And then once you have the mounting bracket drilled and bolted on, it's going to be 4 holes on top, and that as well as just use a 7/32 drill bit. Once you have all the cables plugged in, go ahead and throw on the tank. For the tank on this, make sure that you contact cleaner out the fuel pump line. It's going to be a snug tight fit because it's water sealed. Once that's plugged in, go ahead and move down to the left hand side of the bike. Plug in the fuel line. Go ahead and plug in the headlight mask that has a key switch on it. Once that is all plugged in, go ahead and turn on the Voyager Pro, as well as start the bike. Make sure that you run through the tack sensor that works all the way through the range. Check your satellite. That may take a couple minutes to sync to the satellites. After that, you can check your RPM tack on another screen. You can connect your phone if you want to as well via Bluetooth. And then for the Voyager Pro Kit, it comes either with a temperature sensor that goes into your radiator fins, or possibly that splices into your radiator hoses as well. Make sure that is running and getting a reading on the Voyager Pro on one of the cluster screens. If you have any questions during your installation, or if you want us to look at it, go and give a call to our Matt Jack Racing Shop.